All right, we just listened to In Search of Solace's album, The Endless Ache. Let me switch over to discussion mode. So now we're going to be talking about it a little bit, give you some thoughts and just a couple track highlights, and then we'll go into a deeper discussion with Jordan and give you some ratings at the end. Jordan over here. Anyways, so all right, I did like this. I think I will say right off the bat, I think it did start out stronger. It gave me some high hopes in the very beginning. I think it's because, okay, so I saw this as kind of like a mix between currents and like boundaries, counterparts-ish. It's like this right in between of melodic hardcore and melodic metalcore. But I think like the way they did this, because if you look at the album art, it's set up like an album. It says side A, side B, and so I'm wondering if maybe that's part of the concept here, is that it's a little divided, because the first half definitely feels that more melodic hardcore vibes to it, a lot more like just faster paced, two-steppy, probably even a lot more breakdowns, I would say, just overall kind of feeling like melodic hardcore. And then after the second half, then it kind of leans towards the melodic metalcore side, kind of like via currents style stuff, which I'm not a big fan of currents. I think they're kind of generic, but so I was appreciating that they kind of mixed that with a little bit more of a slight hardcore influence here. But again, I think it does kind of change it up in the second half, so that kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop. But overall, I did think this was pretty solid. You know, again, nothing too crazy or original here, but I will give you some track highlights here. So I've got Death Follows, which was the second track. Just a little note that I appreciated was when they had the little two-step build up and transition. He also like transitioned to this different kind of vocal style, where it was kind of like the more hardcore mid yell almost. And so I kind of like appreciated that, just like that little touch. But again, I kind of wanted some more of that kind of stuff throughout the whole album. I think, like I said, the second half just was kind of a little bit more standardized a little bit. And then Alone, which was again, the third track. So like I said, the first half was a little bit stronger for me. It's this one's a little bit more darker lyrically, and I think it's really cool how they translate that into like a slower tempo. Like, it's still heavy, it's not like a slow song, but it's just like a slower tempo. And then they have the little choir thing at the end. I thought, you know, I appreciate those kinds of things in music, so I kind of like that a lot. That's pretty much it for my highlights. The rest was you know, still good, but overall just kind of standard. I just wish they would have stuck to that little bit more melodic hardcore inspired stuff that was in the first half, though I did still think it was pretty good. Mix wise, pretty standard mix. I do think the drums got a little bit drowned out at times, though. I was missing a little bit of the of the snare. There wasn't much of a snare pop. It was kind of just the same snare sound throughout the whole thing. There was some nice cymbal work here. You'd hear some extra little splashes, just like nice little touches. But again, they were kind of faint compared to the massive guitar sounds in this album. They really put the guitar kind of up front, and it has this interesting tone. I think Jordan will probably speak on that a little bit more. I think the bass was decent. The bass was very present. Heard a lot of the bass here. You can hear, didn't do anything crazy, but it was present, so I appreciate that. A lot of people just drown out the bass completely. But other than that, you know, for my first entry into this band, I think this was pretty solid. Would definitely be interested in hearing some more of this, especially seeing this live. I think this would be very good live. But overall, I thought it was pretty good. So, Jordan, what are you thinking?
While I kind of agree with what you said, it's very on the line of kind of melodic hardcore and melodic metalcore. But I feel like this lost me a little bit. Like you said, the first half was really, really strong and had kind of like that more fast-paced melodic hardcore feeling to it, but it kind of lost me as it went on a little bit. I feel like maybe the mix being just kind of a little bit off kind of lost the punch for me, and it kind of fell flat and just kind of like sonically. But I think everything else is pretty fun. I don't think it's like anything too crazy or, you know, innovative, and you don't really need that. But I feel like they kind of leaned a little bit too much for me into the heavy. I wish they kind of would have mixed a little bit more melody in there. Maybe had some more like clean singing parts, because there was a couple songs like on I think it was Alone, that had like the
Yeah, the choir
kind
part.
of thing at the end. And then there was maybe one other song that kind of had like clean part kind of in the background, but it really wasn't a focus. And I think this album really worked for me whenever they did kind of do the more melodic stuff and not really focus so much on the heavy stuff, because it towards the end have kind of felt like a lot of just breakdowns and kind of more focused on that, and it wasn't really focused more on like the overall picture for me, I don't think. So that kind of lost me a little bit. I think the first half was really good, especially the kind of instrumental track. It kind of just had a little bit of a breath of fresh air to kind of separate everything from the first half and the second half. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, I wish they kind of would have mixed that like more melodic stuff in there. I think that really could have brightened it up and maybe set it apart from, a lot of those other bands. Counterparts and like Currents, they kind of do like the clean singing a lot and have like clean choruses and stuff. But I feel like with this band kind of focusing more on like the heavy stuff, they could have like mixed the clean singing in there, and that would have been cool. Kind of like what Boundaries did, how they had like breakdown choruses almost.
Yeah.
I think that kind of would have been like a cool touch just to hear a little bit more of that. So yeah, otherwise I think it's pretty standard. Yeah, nothing too crazy, but I think for first listen, this is pretty good.
What were you thinking about did you mention the guitar tone?
I don't know. I kind of like the guitar tone because it is so like thick and saturated, but I feel like they could have just kind of lowered the level of it a little bit. They could have still kept the same tone, but just kind of turned the guitars down a little bit and let the kind of like top end of the mix kind of breathe and like have more room for like the cymbals, because I really didn't hear a lot of the cymbals and like the snare. So I feel like there was a little bit less or treble and top end to it. I feel like that kind of would have rounded it out a little bit more.
All right. Well, what would you rate this?
I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. I believe someone in our chat said 6 out of 10. I think that's a little too low for me. I do think this was still solid, but yeah, I'll agree with the 7. I think a 7 is fair. It definitely has some potential. There's some really good potential here. A lot of really good moments for sure. Just a lot of it was, fairly, it was just, standard, which isn't a bad thing either, I don't mind that kind of sound. I just like when they play around a lot more, like I said in the first half, how they did, there's a lot more mixing it up and less of the Currents wee stuff. But other than that, yeah, so 7 out of 10, still very solid entry. Would definitely like to see this live, though. I think this would probably translate a lot better live, actually. So good job to In Search of Solace, and yeah, thank you.